Daniel had been on long flights before, but this one felt different. He had spent most of the 14 hours staring out the window, trying to convince himself that everything would go smoothly once he landed. The company he worked for had trusted him with an important project, one that could open doors for everyone on his team. He wanted to feel proud, confident, ready. But deep down, he felt a quiet fear that he didn't want to admit. The airport was bright and crowded when he arrived. People hurried past him, speaking in a language he had only heard through apps and short videos. He had tried learning it for a few weeks, but work kept him too busy, and nothing he practiced really stayed in his mind. Still, he thought he would be fine because his translator was supposed to meet him at the airport. They had planned everything carefully. All he needed to do was find the translator, get to the hotel, rest, and prepare for the next day's big meeting. But as soon as he stepped out of the arrival area and checked his phone, he saw a message that made his heart sink. His translator had been rushed to the hospital because of a sudden medical emergency. The message apologized many times, offering no solution, no replacement, no backup plan. Daniel stood still in the middle of the busy airport, staring at the message. For a moment, he felt the noise around him fade into the background. People passed him on both sides, dragging luggage, greeting family members, rushing toward taxis, but he felt frozen, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He tried calling the translator, but there was no answer. He sent a message to his company back home, but it was the middle of the night there. No one would see it for hours. Taking a deep breath, Daniel told himself he could still manage. He walked toward the taxi line, rehearsing simple phrases he remembered. But when he tried to speak to the driver, the man shook his head politely, unable to understand him. Daniel tried showing him the hotel address on his phone, hoping that would make it easier. The driver nodded then, and Daniel felt a small wave of relief. During the ride, he stared out the window at the unfamiliar streets, watching people on bikes, bright storefronts, and signs he couldn't read. He wanted to appreciate the beauty of the place, but worry filled his mind. How would he attend tomorrow's meeting without a translator? How would he explain his ideas? How would he understand what the clients said? His company had emphasized that this meeting was very important. It was their chance to build trust, to show respect, to form a long-term relationship. Now he wasn't even sure he could introduce himself properly. When he finally reached the hotel, he stepped out of the taxi feeling exhausted. The lobby was elegant, quiet, and warm compared to the noisy airport. A receptionist greeted him with a smile. Daniel smiled back, hoping the situation might get easier now, but as soon as he spoke, her smile faded slightly. She couldn't understand him. She tried her best, using gestures and a translation app, but the process was slow and confusing. Daniel felt awkward, apologizing repeatedly, even though he knew it wasn't his fault. After several minutes of trying to explain his booking and showing his confirmation number, he finally received his room key. He thanked her the only way he could, by bowing politely, hoping it conveyed respect. Upstairs in his room, he placed his luggage near the bed and collapsed into a chair. The silence made him feel even more alone. He checked his phone again, but there were still no replies from his office. He opened his laptop and reviewed his presentation slides, convincing himself that he should focus on what he could control. But the truth was, he felt helpless. Even with perfect slides, he had no way to communicate them. The next morning, he woke up early, trying not to think about the growing pressure on his shoulders. He got dressed carefully, adjusting his tie again and again, wanting to look professional even if he didn't feel that way inside. He practiced slow breathing as he walked downstairs, hoping it would calm him. At breakfast, he sat alone at a corner table. People around him chatted easily, laughing, making conversation. He watched them and wished he could join in, even for a moment. The waiter approached and spoke kindly, but Daniel could not understand him. He pointed to an item on the menu, hoping it wouldn't be something unfamiliar. The waiter nodded politely and walked away. That small exchange left Daniel feeling even more isolated. He wasn't used to feeling powerless. Back home, he could handle any problem, help others, make decisions. Here, simple tasks felt impossible. After breakfast, he returned to his room to review his notes again. He read through the documents the clients had sent, filled with details about the partnership they hoped to build. But the more he read, the more anxious he felt. The documents were written in their language, and although he had a translated version back home, it didn't include the newest updates they had emailed the night before. He printed the updated pages using the hotel's small business center. As he returned to his room, he dropped a stack of the papers outside his door when the elevator jerked unexpectedly. They scattered across the hallway. Embarrassed, he bent down quickly to gather them. A maid who had been cleaning a nearby room noticed and hurried over to help him. She knelt down quietly, picking up several pages with swift movements. Daniel thanked her, even though she probably didn't understand him. She simply smiled gently and handed him the papers. But before she passed the last page back to him, she paused. Her eyes scanned the paper for a moment, not a confused look, but a familiar one. As if she recognized what she was reading, Daniel watched her. Confused but curious, she held the page up slightly and looked at him. "You need this for meeting?" she asked softly, in English that carried a slight accent but was easy to understand. Daniel blinked. Yes, I do," he said, surprised she even knew what he meant. She nodded, glancing at the page again. Then she spoke the next sentence, not in English, but in fluent Chinese. The words flowed smoothly, confidently. With the tone and rhythm of someone who had spoken the language their whole life, Daniel stared at her. Unable to hide his shock, she looked down shyly, as if realizing she might have overstepped. "Sorry," she said softly. "I saw this part as wrong. Translation not match meaning." She gently tapped the section on the paper. Daniel felt his breath catch. You speak Chinese?" he asked, still amazed. She hesitated before nodding. "I learned when I was young. My family lived near the border. We moved many times. I helped my parents with work. I still remember. He could hardly believe the timing. For the first time since he arrived, he felt a spark of hope. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She looked a little nervous but answered, "My name is May." Daniel smiled, feeling a weight lift from his chest. "May, could you help me? Even just a little. I have a very important meeting, and I'm completely lost." May looked down at the cleaning cart beside her. She seemed unsure, torn between responsibility and the unexpected request in front of her. After a moment, she nodded softly. "I can help for a little. I finish this floor soon. I can read your papers while I clean. You can tell me what you need to say. I can tell you how to say correct meaning. Not perfect, but maybe enough." Daniel felt relief wash over him, stronger than he expected. It wasn't just about the meeting anymore. It was the simple comfort of not feeling alone. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "Really? Thank you." May smiled for the first time, a small, warm smile that made the hallway feel less cold. She took the papers gently from him and began reading them with ease, her eyes moving quickly as if the words were familiar friends. For the first time since he had arrived in the country, Daniel felt something shift inside him. The fear that had followed him since the airport slowly began to fade. He wasn't alone anymore. Someone understood. Someone was willing to help. He didn't know it yet. But this unexpected moment would change everything that followed. May stood in the hallway with the papers still in her hands, her eyes moving quietly over the words. Daniel watched her, still trying to understand how someone who worked as a hotel maid could read the documents faster than he could read a menu in his own language. He didn't want to stare, but he couldn't hide his curiosity. Something about the way she read, come focused. Confident made him feel like he had just stumbled into a safe place. She finally looked up, almost shyly, as if she wasn't sure if she had done something wrong. "This part," she said softly, tapping the paper again. "They talk about trust. They want to see if you understand their values. They don't only want business. They want connection. If you talk only about numbers, they will not feel comfortable. You must show respect first. Then they listen." Daniel listened carefully. He had no idea she knew so much about this. He nodded, absorbing every word, feeling a little embarrassed that he had missed something so important. "Can you explain more?" he asked gently. May nodded again, folding the paper neatly before handing it back. "I can, but maybe better if we sit." I can read all of it and tell you what is important. They moved to a small seating area near the elevator where no one else was around. May sat on the very edge of the chair like she wasn't used to resting during work hours. She held the papers carefully, as if they were something valuable. Daniel sat across from her, leaning forward to hear every word. He didn't want her to think he was treating her like staff. Right now, she felt more like a guide, a lifeline, in a place where he felt completely lost. May began explaining each section of the papers, line by line. She didn't just translate the words, she explained the meaning behind them, the cultural tone, the intention, the expectations. She pointed out where polite phrases mattered more than direct answers, where humility would be appreciated, and where a strong but respectful tone was necessary. Daniel was amazed. He didn't interrupt her. He didn't want to. Every explanation she gave made his understanding deeper, clearer. He realized she wasn't guessing. She knew exactly what she was talking about. After about 20 minutes, May glanced around nervously. I must finish cleaning the rooms on this floor, she said quietly. But I can take papers with me while I clean. I can read and think, then tell you what else you should know. Daniel nodded right away. Of course. I don't want to get you in trouble. Are you sure it's okay? She gave a tiny smile. It's okay. I am fast. She stood up, tucked the papers neatly into a folder he handed her, and pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway. Daniel watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt since he arrived, a sense of hope. He went back to his room, trying to focus while May worked. Every few minutes he caught himself glancing at the door, wondering what she might say next, what she might help him understand. It was strange, he thought. Yesterday, he had felt like he was drowning in confusion. Today, someone he had never expected had thrown him a rope. Nearly an hour passed before there was a soft knock on his door. Daniel opened it, and there was May, holding the papers again, but now with small sticky notes attached to certain pages. He realized she must have borrowed them from the housekeeping cart. She held out the folder. I wrote notes, she said. You can read later. These parts very important. If you talk about these things, they will respect you. Daniel took the folder gratefully. Thank you, May. Really? You have no idea how much this helps me. She lowered her eyes. It's nothing. He shook his head gently. No, it's not nothing. I was completely lost before you helped me. May shifted her weight slightly, almost uncomfortable with praise. You try hard, she said softly. I can see. People here respect effort. Even if you don't say things perfect, if you show respect, they understand. Daniel nodded, feeling a small knot form in his throat. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that. I have meeting soon, he said. Would you? Maybe come with me? Just to help a little. Her expression changed instantly, surprise, worry, and hesitation all at once. I don't know, she whispered. I work here. I cannot just go. I can ask the hotel manager, Daniel said quickly. Not to take you away from work. Maybe just for an hour? May shook her head. Manager doesn't like people leaving station. I don't want trouble. Daniel felt disappointment wash over him, but he didn't want to push her. She was already helping him more than anyone else. Okay, he said gently. Then maybe you can help me prepare before I go. She nodded, relieved. Yes, I can do that. They spent the next half hour sitting at the small table in his room. May read through parts of the presentation he had prepared, correcting a few lines and explaining why certain words might sound rude or too direct in their culture. She even corrected the order of his talking points, showing him which topics needed to come first. Daniel watched her in quiet amazement. She had a natural skill, not just with language, but with understanding people, emotions, tone. She seemed to know exactly how to connect ideas in a way that made sense. You're really good at this, Daniel said at one point. May froze for a moment, surprised by the compliment. I just speak both languages, she said quickly. No, Daniel said. It's more than that. You understand things most people wouldn't. You read between the lines. May looked down at her hands, folding the corner of one paper back and forth. When I was younger, she said softly, I wanted to be a teacher. I liked studying. I liked reading. But life changed and we needed money. I started working instead. It's okay. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. There was something in her voice, something honest, something tired, something accepting that made his heart ache just a little. You deserve more, he said quietly. May shook her head gently. Everyone wants more, she said. But wanting doesn't change things. For a moment, they sat in silence, Daniel thinking about how easily life paths could change. May probably wondering if she had said too much. Suddenly, she stood up. I must go clean the other rooms, she said quickly, almost as if she wanted to step away from the personal moment. Daniel stood too. Of course. I don't want to keep you. She walked to the door, but before she left, she looked back at him. Your meeting, she said. Remember to be calm, slow, not too much hand movement, and smile. They watch small things. Daniel smiled at her warmly. I will remember. Thank you. She nodded once, then left the room. As the door closed, Daniel looked at the folder she had given him. Her notes were neat, written in small, careful letters. Each word mattered. Each point she had highlighted made him feel like he understood more and more. He sat down and read through everything she wrote. The longer he read, the more he realized just how important her help had become. Without her, he would be walking into the meeting blind. With her, he finally felt prepared. When it was time to leave for the meeting, Daniel adjusted his tie and looked at his reflection one last time. He still felt nervous, but the fear wasn't eating at him anymore. He had guidance now. He had clarity, and perhaps more than anything, he had someone who believed he could do this. He left the hotel, carrying the folder May had filled with notes, and got into a taxi the front desk had arranged. As he sat in the back seat, he went through her tips again slowly, carefully, repeating key phrases softly under his breath. The city passed by outside the window. Bright and busy, but Daniel felt a strange calm settle over him. He wasn't confident yet, but he wasn't lost anymore. He reached the office building where the meeting would be held. Tall glass walls reflected the sunlight, making the building look imposing and grand. He stepped inside, reminding himself to breathe slowly, speak calmly, and smile. Inside the elevator, held the folder close to his chest. He whispered the polite greeting May had taught him. He tried to say it exactly the way she had. The doors opened to a wide conference room with several people already seated. They looked up as he entered. Their expressions serious, curious, reserved. Daniel bowed politely, the way May said would be appreciated, and greeted them in their language. Slowly but confidently, their expressions softened immediately. A small spark of relief warmed his chest as the meeting began. He remembered every one of May's instructions. He watched their faces, their tone, their reactions. He spoke carefully, showing respect first before discussing business. He kept his hands still, smiled gently, and nodded at the right moments. They responded positively, speaking slower for him, accepting his efforts with kindness, and through it all, Daniel felt something surprising gratitude. Gratitude for a maid who had stepped forward when he felt completely alone. Gratitude for a young woman who saw someone struggling and chose to help. The meeting ended with handshakes and warm nods. One of the managers even complimented his understanding of their values. Daniel bowed again, thanking them sincerely. As he walked out of the building, the afternoon sun felt warmer than before. The air felt lighter. He felt lighter. He stepped into a taxi and leaned back against the seat. He wanted to go back to the hotel right away, to tell May everything, to thank her again, to share the good news that the meeting had gone better than he ever expected. Something in his heart told him that this was only the beginning of the partnership, of the connection, and of something he couldn't quite name yet. But whatever it was, he knew one thing for sure. His life had changed from the moment. She stepped forward and spoke those first fluent words. Daniel reached the hotel, feeling a strange mix of excitement and relief. The afternoon sun had started to fade, painting the sky in soft colors that almost matched the calm growing inside him. He couldn't wait to tell May how well everything had gone. It felt odd, almost funny, that the first person he wanted to share the news with was someone he had met only that morning. But she was the reason he had walked into that meeting with confidence instead of fear. When he entered the lobby, he looked around to see if she was nearby. The receptionist smiled politely, but she wasn't May. A few guests stood in line with their luggage. A bellboy walked past carrying suitcases. But May wasn't there. Daniel walked toward the elevators, thinking she might still be working upstairs. When he reached his floor, he stepped out and listened. The hallway was quiet. The cleaning cart that usually sat near the corner was gone. He walked a little further, hoping to hear the faint sound of cleaning spray or the gentle hum of a vacuum. Still nothing. He stood still for a moment, feeling strangely disappointed. He wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to see her reaction, the way her eyes lit up when she understood him. The small smile she tried to hide whenever she felt shy. He went back to his room, placed the folder on the desk, and sat down on the bed. Maybe she was working on another floor today. Maybe her shift had ended. Maybe he would see her tomorrow. But even as he told himself that, he felt a quiet sadness. It was surprising how quickly her presence had become meaningful. After a few minutes, Daniel decided to go downstairs for something warm to drink. The day had been long, and the cold air in the meeting room had left him feeling tired. The small cafe in the lobby seemed like the perfect place to relax. He ordered tea, pointing at the picture on the menu, and the barista nodded. While waiting, he sat by the window and watched people walk in and out of the hotel. Some were tourists with bright clothes and cameras, some were business people moving quickly with briefcases, and some were hotel staff, heading to or from their shifts. He wondered if May was among them as he lifted the cup to take a sip. He heard soft footsteps behind him. He didn't look right away, but something about the way they moved made him pause. Gentle steps, a bit light, familiar in some quiet way. "Hello?" a soft voice said. Daniel turned, and there she was, May, holding a small notebook against her chest, her hair tied back neatly. Her uniform clean and simple as always. He stood up without thinking. "May, I was looking for you." Her eyes widened slightly. "Looking for me?" she repeated, surprised. "Yes," he said. "I wanted to tell you how the meeting went." She sat down slowly, unsure if she should, but Daniel pulled a chair out for her, and she finally did. She sat with her back straight, hands folded over the notebook, almost like a student waiting for news from her teacher. "So," she asked quietly, "was it good?" Daniel smiled widely, unable to hide his happiness. "It went better than I expected. They were so warm. They listened. They asked questions. And I understood everything much better because of you." May's face relaxed, and her smile slowly appeared. "I'm happy to hear that," she said. "I was thinking about you. I hoped it would go well." Daniel blinked. "You were thinking about me." May looked away quickly. "Only because you were nervous," she said. "I didn't want you to fail after trying so hard." "You helped more than you know," Daniel said. "You didn't just translate, you guided me. You helped me see things I never understood." She lowered her head slightly, touched by the words. Then she opened her notebook and flipped to a page marked with a small ribbon. "I wrote more notes," she said. "In case you have more meetings?" "I think they will want to meet again, yes." Daniel nodded. "Yes. They mentioned meeting again in 2 days." They pushed the notebook toward him. "These notes explain business customs. Also how to answer if they talk about long-term plans. And how to show respect with words, not only gestures." Daniel took the notebook gently. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I wanted to," she replied in a soft voice. A moment of silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, but warm. Daniel took a sip of his tea. May sat quietly, watching the people outside the window, her fingers tapping the table nervously. "May," Daniel said, breaking the silence, "how did you learn so much? Not just the language, but everything. The culture, the meanings." May took a slow breath. "My father worked with traders," she said. "People came from many places. He always said if you want to survive, you must understand people before you talk to them. I listened. I watched. I learned. But life made things difficult, so I stopped studying. I started working. I do what I can. Daniel felt a deep respect for her grow even stronger. She lived a life full of responsibilities, learning more from experience than most people learned in classrooms. Do you ever wish you could study again? He asked gently. May hesitated. Sometimes, she said. But dreams are expensive. Work is necessary.
Oh.
Daniel wanted to say something comforting, but he didn't want to offer empty hope. So he simply nodded. Double quotes. Thank you for the notebook, he said. I'll read every word. May looked relieved. I hope it helps. Just then, another hotel staff member walked into the cafe and waved at May. She stood up quickly. I must go. They need me. Daniel stood too. Will I see you tomorrow? Maybe, she said, smiling lightly. If I am on this floor? She left with her quiet steps, disappearing behind the lobby corner. Daniel sat back down and opened the notebook. Her handwriting was neat, the notes thoughtful and detailed. She had even drawn small diagrams showing how to respond in certain situations. He smiled softly. Her effort touched him deeply. The next morning, Daniel woke up early and read through the notebook again. The more he read, the more he realized that she wasn't just helping him survive the trip. She was teaching him about respect, about communication, about understanding people. Around mid-morning, he stepped into the hallway to look for May. He didn't want to bother her, but he hoped to see her just to say good morning. He waited by the elevator for a few minutes, pretending to check his messages, but she didn't appear. After a moment, he walked toward the rooms at the end of the hall. There, he heard soft humming. It was a tune he didn't recognize, but it sounded peaceful. He followed the sound and found May wiping down a table inside one of the rooms. Her back was toward him, her movements quick but gentle. He knocked softly on the doorframe. May turned, surprised. You're here early, she said. Daniel smiled. I wanted to thank you again, and to ask if you could help me prepare for the second meeting. May nodded slowly. I can help after I finish these rooms. I can wait, Daniel said. Wait, here. He stood beside the hallway wall. Yes, I don't mind. She blushed slightly. You don't have to do that. I finish fast. But Daniel didn't leave. He waited patiently as she cleaned. When she finally finished the last room, she walked out with her cart. I'm done now, she said softly. They went to his room again, just as they had the day before. May sat at the small table and flipped through the notebook today. She just said, I teach you how to answer if they talk about shared goals. They like when both sides say they want to grow together. Daniel nodded. I'll try my best. May smiled. I know. You try very hard. For the next hour, she taught him phrases, explained deeper meanings, and corrected his tone gently when he practiced. She wasn't strict, but she was honest. If he made a mistake, she told him. If he did well, her face brightened with pride. At one point, Daniel asked her to repeat a phrase. She did, but then laughed softly when he tried to say it the same way. You say it like you are singing, she said. Daniel laughed too, surprised at himself. Well, you sound much better than me. You will get better, she said. Just don't rush. Their laughter faded into a comfortable quiet. For a moment, Daniel watched her as she explained another phrase, her fingers tracing the words gently, her voice soft but steady. He realized something then, something he had tried not to think about. He enjoyed her company far more than he expected. Not because she was helping him, but because she had a kindness and warmth that made him feel at ease. After they finished, May closed the notebook. Tomorrow, I have day off, she said, but I can come in morning to help you if needed. Daniel shook his head. No, you should rest. You've helped me enough. He hesitated. I don't mind.
I do,
he said gently. You deserve time for yourself. She nodded slowly. Thank you. She stood, ready to leave, but before she reached the door, Daniel said, May. She turned. After your day off? Maybe we could talk more? Not about work, just... Talk. May blinked, surprised again. Talk? Why? Daniel smiled softly. Because I like talking to you. Her cheeks warmed with a shy color. She looked away for a moment, then nodded. Okay, she whispered. She stepped out of the room, leaving Daniel alone with the warm feeling she always seemed to bring as the door closed. He realized how much he looked forward to the next time he would see her, and somewhere deep inside, he knew this connection was becoming something more, something that neither of them had expected, but both of them quietly welcomed. It had been several days since Daniel first met May, and during that time, their working rhythm had become something natural and easy. Each morning, she would arrive with a small notebook in her hand, ready to help him prepare for meetings, calls, and cultural questions he did not understand. Daniel had traveled for work many times before, but he had never experienced anything like this trip. Everything felt smoother now, and he knew that most of that was because of her. Even though her job at the hotel was simple, her mind worked fast, and her sense of responsibility was stronger than he expected. She noticed things before he'd expressions on people's faces. Small misunderstandings in tone, and hidden meanings that were not written in the words themselves. Whenever Daniel felt unsure, she quietly stepped in with the right explanation. One morning, Daniel was sitting at the hotel lobby reviewing a thick stack of documents. He had a very important meeting scheduled for the afternoon, one that would decide whether his company would move forward with a major project. The pressure weighed on him, and he couldn't help feeling nervous. As he rubbed his forehead, he heard a soft voice beside him. "You are worried about today's meeting?" May asked gently. He looked up and nodded. "A little. This one matters a lot." She sat down across from him, placed her notebook on the table, and pulled the documents closer. "We can go through them again. You will feel better once everything is clear." Her calm tone worked like medicine. Daniel handed her the papers, and she read each page slowly, explaining sections he did not fully understand. She never acted like she was above him, but she also didn't act as if she should hide her intelligence. She simply helped, naturally and confidently, as they reviewed the materials. Daniel found himself watching her more than the pages. She had a quiet strength in the way she focused, a kind of determination that came from years of carrying responsibilities without complaining. He could tell she was used to helping others, even when no one asked. After an hour of reviewing everything, May closed the folder and looked at him. "You are ready. You understand more than you think, and I will be there with you." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." Instead of replying, May smiled softly, and there was something in her eyes, a kind of reassurance he hadn't felt in a long time. Later that afternoon, they arrived at the office building where the meeting would take place. The environment felt different this time. The first meeting, when he had felt lost and embarrassed, had taken place in the same building. But now he walked in with more confidence. May walked beside him, holding her notebook. She looked a little nervous, but she also looked prepared. Inside the conference room, the local partners greeted them politely. Daniel shook hands with everyone, and then they sat down. The meeting began with introductions. This time, when Daniel spoke, May translated his words smoothly, making sure his tone and meaning were clear. She never rushed, never hesitated. Every sentence flowed naturally. At one point, the conversation became more complicated. The partners were discussing a cultural concern about the project, something Daniel had not fully understood before. He leaned toward May, and she quietly whispered an explanation. Her words helped him understand the deeper expectations behind their concerns. When he responded, she translated with a softness that made his words sound thoughtful and respectful. The partners nodded, clearly appreciating his effort to understand their perspective. As the meeting continued, Daniel watched how May handled everything. She was careful, but never afraid to speak. She made sure every detail was communicated correctly. Sometimes she paused to make sure both sides understood each other fully. Her presence kept the conversation steady and smooth. Halfway through, one of the partners, a senior man with sharp eyes, turned to May and spoke directly to her. She answered him confidently. The man nodded with approval. Daniel noticed this small moment and felt proud of her. She was shining in a place she never expected to be. Near the end of the meeting, the partners shared their final thoughts. Their expressions were more relaxed than before. Daniel's company had made a good impression, and the partners seemed satisfied. Even though they still needed time to finalize everything, Daniel could tell things were moving in the right direction. As soon as they stepped outside the building, Daniel let out a deep breath. That went so much better than I expected. May looked relieved too. You did well. You explained everything clearly. I explained everything clearly because you guided me, he admitted. She shook her head lightly. I only translated. The ideas were yours. No, he said softly. You helped me understand the parts I never would have noticed. May lowered her eyes for a moment, touched by his words. She had never been praised like this before, at least not for her skills. Most of the time, guests barely noticed her. They walked back toward the hotel slowly. The evening sunlight warmed the streets, and people moved around them, speaking a language Daniel still couldn't understand. But after days of working with May, he didn't feel alone anymore. As they approached the hotel entrance, Daniel stopped and said, Let's have dinner. My treat. I want to thank you properly. May hesitated for a moment. Are you sure? Very sure. After a short pause, she nodded. They went to a small restaurant nearby. The place wasn't fancy, but it felt cozy. They sat by a window, and for the first time, Daniel saw her relax. She wasn't working now. She wasn't translating. She was just herself. During dinner, Daniel asked about her life, but gently, never pushing too hard. She told him she grew up speaking both languages because her grandparents had taught her. She spoke about her family with warmth, even though she carried heavy responsibilities. She explained that she once hoped to continue her education, but due to financial problems, she had to stop. Daniel listened to every word. The more she spoke, the more he saw how much strength she carried quietly. When he shared his own experiences, his struggles, his fears, and the pressure of his job, May listened with the same patience she had shown in the meetings. She wasn't judging him. She wasn't trying to impress him. She simply understood. Their conversation lasted longer than either of them expected. Outside, the night grew darker, but inside, the small restaurant, time felt slower. By the time they walked back to the hotel, something had changed between them. It wasn't romance. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was something simpler, deeper trust. A quiet understanding before they went their separate ways for the night. Daniel stopped and said softly, Thank you for everything today. Truly. May smiled with a warmth he hadn't seen before. You're welcome. I'll be ready tomorrow. As she walked away, Daniel stood there for a moment, thinking about how unexpected life could be. A few days ago, he had felt lost, embarrassed, and overwhelmed. Now, because one person had stepped forward at the right moment, everything felt different. May didn't know it yet, but she had already changed his trip, and soon her life was about to change too more than she ever imagined. The next morning began quietly. With soft sunlight slipping through the hotel curtains, Daniel woke up feeling both nervous and hopeful. It was his last full day in the country, and he had one more meeting to attend, a final presentation that would decide the direction of the project. Even though he had prepared well, he knew the day carried weight, and he also knew how much he depended on May's support. When he stepped into the lobby, he found her already waiting near a small table, her notebook in front of her. She looked calm as always, but he could sense a hint of seriousness in her expression. She smiled when she saw him, and that was enough to make his morning easier. Ready? She asked. As ready as I can be, he replied. They sat together for a moment, reviewing the main points. Daniel noticed how detailed her notes were. She had copied important phrases, cultural hints, and possible questions in neat handwriting. She had even written little reminders for him, short, gentle prompts that made complex ideas easier. After going through everything, she looked at him and said quietly, You'll be fine. You worked hard for this. Daniel nodded, appreciating her confidence more than he could express. The meeting was held in a tall building across town. When they arrived, the atmosphere felt different from the earlier ones. It wasn't tense, but it carried a sense of importance. The partners greeted them warmly. They remembered Daniel's effort to understand their culture, and they remembered the quiet, capable translator who had played such a big role in making things smooth. As the meeting began, Daniel felt that familiar mix of pressure and determination. But this time, he felt grounded. He had prepared well. He understood the expectations better. Most importantly, May was seated beside him. Every time he spoke, she translated with calm confidence. Every time someone responded, she guided him with a simple glance or a whispered explanation. It felt less like he was giving a presentation and more like he was working side by side with someone he truly trusted. Midway through the meeting, something unexpected happened. One of the senior partners asked Daniel a complicated question about future collaboration and cultural sensitivity. It wasn't a yes or no question. It required thought, understanding, and sensitivity. Daniel paused, thinking about how to respond. He looked at May, and she looked back, her expression encouraging. She didn't tell him what to say. She didn't feed him words. Instead, she gave him the confidence to speak from his heart. He answered slowly, honestly, acknowledging the importance of respecting local customs and promising to work in a way that valued both sides. May translated his words carefully, adding the respectful tone that matched the culture. When she finished, the room fell quiet for a moment. Then the partners nodded, clearly impressed. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. When it finally ended, the senior partner stood and shook Daniel's hand firmly. "We appreciate your effort," the man said, "and we appreciate your interpreter. She is exceptional." Daniel smiled proudly. "Yes, she really is." On the way back to the hotel, the air felt lighter. Even though the final decision would take time, Daniel knew they had done their best. He could feel the difference. He no longer felt like the lost, confused traveler he had been on the first day. Back at the hotel, they sat in the lobby for a while. May took a deep breath, finally relaxing now that the pressure had lifted. "You did very well," she said softly. "I did well because of you," he replied. She shook her head, but there was warmth in her eyes. "You worked hard. You learned. You tried to understand their way. That's why it worked." There was a short silence between them, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. "May," Daniel began gently, "can I ask you something?" She looked up. "Yes." "If you could do anything right now, if you could choose a different path, what would you want?" She stared at the floor for a moment. "I don't know if I can choose anything," she said quietly. "But if you could." She hesitated. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "I always wanted to study languages more. Maybe teach one day. But dreams are expensive." Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had known she was talented, but hearing her speak so openly made everything clearer. "You should," he said sincerely. "You have a gift." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. It's the kind someone gives when they appreciate the thought but don't believe it can happen. That evening, Daniel sat alone in his hotel room, thinking about everything that had happened since he arrived. He thought about how she had stepped forward when no one else could help, how she had guided him through every difficult moment, how her kindness and intelligence had changed his entire trip. He realized he couldn't leave things as they were, not when he had the ability to help her the way she had helped him. The next morning, his last day. Daniel met May in the lobby again. She looked tired, as if she hadn't slept much. Maybe she had been thinking too. "I want to talk to you about something important," he said. She looked surprised but nodded. They sat down at the same small table they had. Used for their morning reviews, Daniel took a deep breath. "My company. We need someone like you. Someone who understands languages and culture. Someone who can help with communication and translation. And this work can be done from home. You wouldn't need to leave your family or your responsibilities." May stared at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I'm offering you a job," he said gently. "Not as a maid. As an interpreter. A real position. Good pay. Flexible hours. And if you want to study again, we can support that too." For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Her eyes filled with emotion, but she blinked quickly, trying not to cry in public. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "And because you helped me when I had no one." She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything now," he replied. "Just know the offer is real." Tears slipped from her eyes before she could stop them. She wiped them softly, embarrassed. "I never thought someone would see me like that," she said. "Not in this place." "I see your talent," he said, "and I believe in your future." For the first time since he met her, she allowed herself to hope. Not quietly, not secretly, but fully by the time Daniel left for the airport later that day. May stood near the hotel entrance, her hands clasped together, watching him go. She wasn't sad in a heavy way. She was emotional, yes, but she was also filled with something new: possibility. Before he stepped into the car, she said softly, "Thank you for giving me a chance to change my life." Daniel smiled. "You gave me a chance first." As the car pulled away, May stayed there for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. Her life had always felt fixed, unchangeable. But now she had a job offer that could support her family, give her education another start, and open a path she thought she had lost forever. And Daniel flew home feeling grateful not just for the business success, but for the reminder that sometimes the most unexpected people become the biggest blessings. Two lives touched at the right moment, changing each other's paths in ways neither of them had imagined. The weeks that followed moved in a calm, a steady way, almost like the slow turning of pages in a quiet book. After Daniel left the country, life at the hotel continued as usual. Nothing felt completely the same for May. On the outside, she still wore her uniform, greeted guests, and cleaned rooms. On the inside, something had changed, something deep, gentle, full of hope. She kept the business card Daniel had given her tucked inside her notebook, the same notebook she carried everywhere. Sometimes during her lunch break, she would take it out and stare at it, running her fingers over the printed letters. His offer still felt unreal to her. A chance to finally step into a life she once thought she had lost. A chance to study, to grow, to work with her mind instead of only her hands. But with that opportunity came fear. Fear of disappointing him, fear of failing, fear of stepping into a world she had never been part of. Every night after her shift, she would sit in her small room, thinking about her family, their needs, and her own dreams. She wanted to help them. She wanted to move forward. But she also didn't want to give them false hope. One evening, as she sat at her small wooden desk, she whispered to herself, "What if I'm not good enough?" Her grandmother, who lived with her family, had always said that fear often appears exactly when we are close to something new. May held on to that thought as the days slowly passed. Then one morning a message arrived on her phone. It was short and simple, but it filled her with warmth. "Hope you're well. Just checking in. The team is excited to meet you when you're ready." Daniel, she read the message 3 times, her heart beating faster with each reading. He hadn't forgotten about her. He wasn't offering kindness out of pity. He truly believed she was capable. That was the moment she made her decision. Later that evening, she walked to a quiet spot outside the hotel, where a single wooden bench sat beneath a tree. She dialed the number on the card, her hands trembling slightly. When Daniel answered, his voice sounded warm and genuinely happy to hear from her. "May, I'm glad you called. How have you been?" She took a breath. "I've been thinking about your offer and—" He asked gently. "I want to accept," she said in a soft but steady voice. "If the offer is still open—" "It is absolutely open," he replied without hesitation. "And I'm really glad you said yes." As soon as she hung up, May sat on the bench for a long moment, letting the relief wash over her. She had taken the first step. Within a week, Daniel's company contacted her officially. They welcomed her with kindness and professionalism, sending her documents, training material, and a clear explanation of her responsibilities. She would begin with small tasks, translating documents, and helping with simple communication. Over time, she would receive more training, a steady income, an opportunity for growth. The possibility of studying again, the night she told her family, they were shocked at first. Her mother stared at her with wide eyes before breaking into tears, happy tears. Her grandmother held her hand tightly and whispered blessings. Even her younger siblings, who didn't fully understand, hugged her excitedly, for the first time in years. May felt like her life had a direction. She continued working at the hotel for 2 more weeks, while the company prepared her remote workstation. During that time, her coworkers noticed she seemed different, lighter. It's more hopeful, like someone walking toward something bright. One afternoon, the hotel manager asked her to step into his office. At first, she worried she had done something wrong, but instead, he offered her a gentle smile. "I heard you will be leaving soon," he said. "The staff spoke very highly of you. You've always worked hard. You deserve whatever good is coming your way." She bowed her head respectfully. "Thank you. This place has been important to me. I learned a lot here. We'll miss you," he said, "but I'm happy for you." On her last day at the hotel, her coworkers gathered near the staff entrance. They gave her a small farewell gift, nothing expensive. Just a simple pen with her name carved on it and a small notebook. "For your new journey?" One of them said. May held the pen close, touched by the gesture. She promised to visit when she could. When she finally walked out of the hotel for the last time, she stopped at the door and looked back, not with sadness, but with gratitude. This place had been a chapter in her life, but not the whole book. She started her new work the next morning. Her first tasks were small translating emails, reviewing short documents, and sitting in on simple conversations over the phone. At first she felt nervous, but the team members she worked with were patient, helpful, and friendly. One of them even said, "Daniel told us you're very talented. We're lucky to have you." May smiled shyly. She never fully realized how much Daniel had advocated for her, how much he believed in her potential. As the days passed, she grew more confident. Her natural understanding of languages made the tasks feel enjoyable, and the team quickly noticed how reliable she was. About 2 weeks into her new job, Daniel messaged her again. "How's the first month going so far?" "I heard great things," she replied. "It's going better than I expected. Thank you for giving me this chance." His next message made her smile. "You earned it. I just helped open the door." Life continued quietly for a while. May created a small study routine for herself, spending a few hours each night improving her language skills and learning more about communication. She found joy in studying against something she thought she would never feel. Meanwhile, Daniel continued his work back home. His company recognized the smooth progress of the project, and his supervisors praised him for handling the cultural and communication challenges so well. He often thought about the moment May had stepped forward in that hallway. A simple decision, but one that changed so much. A month later, Daniel returned to the country for a follow-up meeting. This time, he wasn't nervous. He felt prepared in more ways than one. Before arriving, he messaged May, "Will you be free to meet?" "I'd love to catch up and see how you're doing," she replied. "Yes, I would like that." When they met in the hotel lobby, the same place where everything had begun, they both felt a quiet sense of pride. She no longer wore her uniform. She carried a laptop bag, her posture more confident, her smile more open. "You look happy," Daniel said. "I am," she answered. "Life feels different now." They walked outside and talked for a long time. She told him about her work, her studies, her family's joy, and her growing confidence. And he told her about the progress of the project and how her translations had helped more than she knew.